Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Emilia, and I'm excited to have you here today. Whether you're a returning listener or tuning in for the first time, we're thrilled to help you on your journey to mastering the English language.
Hey everyone. I'm Liam, your co-host, and we've got a great episode lined up for you today. We know that improving your English accent is one of the biggest challenges, but don't worry, we've got you covered.
That's right. Today, we're diving into one of the most requested topics, how to improve your English accent. So many learners want to sound more fluent and natural when they speak, and we're here to share tips, techniques, and resources to help you do just that.
Improving your accent doesn't mean you have to sound exactly like a native speaker. It's about making your speech clear and easy to understand. And if you can add a little native-like flair to it, even better. We're going to break down how you can do this step by step.
Exactly. Throughout this episode, we'll be discussing ways you can practice on your own, overcome common pronunciation mistakes, and boost your confidence while speaking. Plus, we've got a real-life dialogue between two friends to show you how these techniques work in everyday conversations.
Yeah, Sophie and Lucas will be joining us later with their story about overcoming challenges with their English accents. And of course, we'll be breaking down some important vocabulary you'll hear throughout the episode, so stick around for that.
So, grab your headphones, get comfortable, and let's get started. By the end of this episode, you'll have a toolkit of strategies to help you improve your accent and speak English with more confidence.
But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, so you never miss an episode. And feel free to share this podcast with your friends who are also looking to improve their English skills.
All right, without further ado, let's jump into today's episode, how to improve your English accent. Ready, Liam?
Ready. Let's do it.
Okay, let's dive right into today's topic, how to improve your English accent. I know that many of our listeners are eager to make their English sound more natural and fluent. Liam, let's start with the big question. What do you think are the main challenges learners face when trying to improve their English accent?
Great question, Emilia. I think one of the biggest challenges is understanding that every language has its own unique set of sounds. For many learners, certain English sounds might not exist in their native language, which makes pronunciation tricky. Then there's the rhythm and intonation of English, how we stress certain words and syllables. That can feel really unnatural at first.
Exactly. And I think another challenge is that learners often get discouraged when they don't sound like a native speaker right away. It's important to remember that improving your accent is a journey. It takes time and consistent practice.
Absolutely. And like you said, the goal doesn't always have to be sounding exactly like a native speaker. It's more about being clear and understandable. Once you master clarity, you can start focusing on the finer details, like intonation and stress.
So true. But that leads me to my next question. What can learners do to practice improving their accent at home? I think it's important to give our listeners practical tips they can start using today.
For sure. One of the most effective methods is called shadowing. Have you heard of it? It's where you listen to a native speaker and repeat what they say as quickly as possible after them, almost like you're shadowing their speech. You can use YouTube videos, podcasts, or even TV shows for this. The key is to focus on matching their pronunciation, rhythm, and tone.
Yes, shadowing is a fantastic technique. It really forces you to pay attention to the way native speakers sound and try to imitate them closely. I've also heard of people using language learning apps like ELSA Speak or Hello Talk. These apps help you by giving real-time feedback on your pronunciation, which can be super helpful for learners practicing on their own.
Exactly. Those apps are great. Another useful tool is to record yourself speaking. It can feel a bit weird at first, but listening to yourself helps you catch mistakes you wouldn't notice at the moment. Then, you can compare your recording to a native speaker's pronunciation and see where you might need improvement.
That's a great tip. Recording yourself is also a great way to measure your progress over time. You can go back and listen to earlier recordings and hear how much your accent has improved.
And for learners who really want to dive deep into pronunciation, they can start learning the International Phonetic Alphabet, or IPA. It's a system that shows you how every sound in English is produced. Once you understand IPA symbols, you can really break down the individual sounds that make up words and practice the tricky ones.
Yes, IPA can be a game changer, especially for tricky sounds like the English th sound, which doesn't exist in many languages. Speaking of tricky sounds, what do you think are the most common mistakes learners make when they try to improve their accents?
One mistake I see a lot is focusing too much on individual sounds and forgetting about intonation and sentence stress. In English, the melody of how we say something, whether our pitch rises or falls, or which words we stress, can change the entire meaning of a sentence. For example, in a question like, "Are you going?" If your intonation doesn't rise at the end, it could sound more like a statement than a question.
That's such an important point. Intonation plays a huge role in making speech sound natural. Another common mistake is trying to change too much too quickly. I always tell learners to focus on one aspect at a time. Maybe start with mastering just one difficult sound, like the R sound in English, before moving on to something else.
Yes, that's great advice. Small, steady progress is much better than trying to overhaul your entire accent in one go. And, as we mentioned earlier, clarity should always be your first priority. If people can understand you, that's already a huge win.
Totally agree. And one more thing I'd like to add, don't be afraid to embrace your own accent. We all have unique ways of speaking, and that's what makes language beautiful. You don't need to lose your accent completely. Just make sure your pronunciation is clear enough to be understood.
Exactly. Accents are part of your identity, and you don't need to erase them. The goal is communication. If you can speak clearly and confidently, that's what matters most.
Well said, Liam. So, to recap, improving your English accent comes down to a few key things. Practicing consistently with methods like shadowing, recording yourself, and even learning the IPA. Don't rush the process, focus on clarity, and remember that intonation and sentence stress are just as important as individual sounds.
Right, and don't forget to embrace your natural accent while working on being understood. Improving your pronunciation will make a huge difference in how confident you feel speaking English.
Absolutely. Coming up next, we'll hear a real-life dialogue between two friends, Sophie and Lucas, where they talk about their own experiences with improving their English accents. We'll break down what they talk about and highlight some tips and tricks from their conversation.
Stick around for that. We'll be back soon.
Hey Lucas, you won't believe what happened today. I was at this coffee shop and I tried to order in English, but I think my accent made it hard for the barista to understand me.
Oh no. What happened?
Well, I asked for a latte with almond milk, but I must have said it wrong because he kept asking me to repeat myself. It was so frustrating. I mean, I know my accent isn't perfect, but I didn't think it was that hard to understand.
I totally get it. I've had the same issue before. One time, I was asking for directions, and the person just stared at me like I was speaking another language. It can really shake your confidence, right?
Yeah, exactly. It makes me wonder if I'll ever sound more natural when I speak English. I've been working on it, but it feels like progress is so slow.
Trust me, Sophie, I've been there too. Improving your accent takes time, but it's totally possible. You've already made a lot of progress, even if you don't feel like it.
thanks for saying that. But what did you do to work on your accent? I feel like I need a new approach or something.
Well, I started by focusing on the sounds that were hardest for me, like the R and TH sounds. I practiced them over and over, and I used a technique called shadowing. Have you tried that?
I think I've heard of it, but remind me what it is?
Basically, you listen to a native speaker and try to repeat what they say right after them, almost like you're copying their speech exactly. It helps you match their pronunciation, rhythm, and even intonation. I used YouTube videos and podcasts for this. It felt weird at first, but it really helped.
Oh, that sounds interesting. So, you just try to mimic their accent as closely as possible?
Exactly. The idea isn't to sound exactly like them, but to get your mouth used to making the same sounds and patterns. It helped me a lot with getting used to the flow of English. You should give it a try.
I will definitely try that. But what about when I don't have anyone to practice with? I feel like I can't get real feedback when I'm just practicing on my own.
That's a good point. What I did was start recording myself when I practiced. It sounds a little awkward, I know, but it's super helpful. You can listen to yourself and compare your pronunciation with native speakers. It's a great way to track your progress over time.
Oh, I like that idea. I guess hearing yourself can help you catch mistakes you wouldn't notice while speaking.
Exactly. And don't forget to slow down when you're speaking. Sometimes we try to speak too fast, and that makes our accent sound stronger because we're not hitting the right sounds. Take your time, especially when you're practicing.
That's a good tip. I definitely rush when I get nervous, especially in conversations with native speakers. I just want to get the words out as fast as possible.
Same here. But slowing down helped me a lot. And if you want even more practice, there are apps like ELSA Speak or HelloTalk that give you real-time feedback on your pronunciation. It's like having a coach on your phone.
I've heard of those. I've been meaning to try them, but I wasn't sure if they'd really help. Have you used them?
Yeah, I used ELSA Speak, and it was really useful. It gives you feedback on individual sounds, and it even tracks how much you improve over time. Plus, it's kind of fun. It feels like a game, so it doesn't even feel like studying.
That sounds like exactly what I need. I've been feeling so self-conscious about my accent lately, especially at work. I'm always worried people will judge me if I don't sound perfect.
Oh, Sophie, don't worry about that. Everyone has an accent. The most important thing is that people can understand you. I used to be really self-conscious about my accent too, but then I realized that having an accent is just part of who I am. As long as you're clear and confident, that's what really matters.
You're right. I think I've been putting too much pressure on myself to sound like a native speaker. But I guess the goal should be more about clarity and confidence, right?
Exactly. Accents are part of our identity. You don't need to erase your accent to communicate well in English. Just focus on improving your clarity, and you'll feel much more confident.
Thanks, Lucas. I really needed to hear that. I'll definitely try shadowing and recording myself, and maybe I'll give those apps a go too. Sounds like they could really help.
No problem. You've got this. Just take it one step at a time, and you'll definitely see progress. And don't forget to have fun with it. Learning a language is a journey, not a race.
True. Thanks again, Lucas. I feel way better about my accent now. I'm going to start practicing as soon as I get home.
Anytime. I'm sure you'll notice a difference soon. Just keep practicing and don't be too hard on yourself. You're doing great.
Thanks. I will keep you posted on my progress.
I can't wait to hear about it. Good luck.
All right, that was a great conversation between Sophie and Lucas. Now, let's break it down and highlight the key points they discussed about improving English accents. What stood out to you, Liam?
Well, the first thing I noticed was Sophie's frustration. A lot of learners feel the same way when they struggle to be understood because of their accents. It's a common issue, but it's important to remember that accents are natural, and they don't define how well you speak a language.
Absolutely. And Lucas made a great point about focusing on clarity rather than trying to get rid of your accent completely. It's important to embrace your accent while working on making your speech clear and understandable. Trying to sound exactly like a native speaker can put too much pressure on learners.
Exactly. Instead of aiming for perfection, aim for confidence and clarity. One thing Lucas mentioned was the shadowing technique. That's a really effective way to improve your accent because it helps you mimic the rhythm, pronunciation, and intonation of native speakers.
Yes, shadowing is fantastic. It trains your mouth and ears to get used to the patterns of English. If you can consistently shadow conversations or podcasts, you'll notice improvements in how natural your speech sounds. Lucas also talked about recording yourself, which is another powerful tool.
Recording is great because it lets you hear your own mistakes, which you might not notice while speaking. And it gives you a chance to track your progress over time. Plus, Sophie's concern about not having someone to practice with is valid, but this method allows you to be your own coach.
Exactly. And remember how Lucas emphasized slowing down when you speak? I think that's such an important tip. Often, learners feel the need to rush through sentences, but slowing down helps you pronounce words more clearly and gives you time to think about how to form the sounds correctly.
That's a crucial point. When we speak too quickly, our accents can become more pronounced because we're not fully hitting each sound. Slowing down also helps build confidence, which Sophie really needed after her experience at the coffee shop.
And finally, Lucas recommended some really helpful tools like pronunciation apps. These can give real-time feedback on your accent, which is super beneficial. Apps like ELSA Speak or HelloTalk provide a fun and interactive way to practice pronunciation without the pressure of real-life conversations.
Exactly. Those apps are like having a personal tutor in your pocket. And for learners who don't have regular access to native speakers, they're a great resource for getting feedback and practicing at your own pace.
To sum up, Sophie and Lucas' conversation gave us some great insights. Focus on clarity over perfection. Use techniques like shadowing and recording yourself. Speak slowly to improve accuracy and take advantage of tools like apps to track your progress. Improving your accent is a journey, and like Lucas said, it's important to enjoy the process.
Well said. It's all about small steps that lead to big improvements over time. Let's move on to the next segment, where we'll break down some key vocabulary from their conversation.
Now it's time for one of my favorite parts of the podcast, the vocabulary breakdown. We're going to take a closer look at 5 key vocabulary words and phrases from our discussion. These words can help you not only improve your English accent, but also your overall communication skills. Ready, Liam?
Absolutely. Let's dive right in.
Our first word is shadowing. In the context of language learning, shadowing means listening to a native speaker and then trying to repeat what they say immediately after, almost like you're their shadow. It's a great way to improve your pronunciation, intonation, and rhythm in English.
Example sentence. I've been practicing shadowing with my favorite English podcast, and I've noticed a big improvement in how natural my accent sounds.
Next, we have intonation. This refers to the rise and fall in the pitch of your voice when you speak. In English, intonation can change the meaning of a sentence, so it's really important to get it right. It's especially important when you're trying to sound more natural.
Example sentence. Working on your intonation can help you sound more like a native speaker because it's not just about what you say, but how you say it.
Our third word is pronunciation. This is how you make the sounds of a language. Good pronunciation means speaking in a way that others can understand, even if you have an accent. It's what Sophie was worried about in her conversation with Lucas.
Example sentence. Improving my pronunciation has helped people understand me better when I speak English, even though I still have a slight accent.
Next up is clarity. This means how clear and easy to understand your speech is. As Lucas mentioned, the goal isn't to erase your accent, but to speak with clarity so that others can understand you without difficulty.
Example sentence. Focus on clarity when speaking English. Being understood is more important than having a perfect accent.
And finally, we have self-conscious. This is when you feel embarrassed or overly aware of something about yourself, like your accent or how you sound when you speak. Sophie was feeling self-conscious about her English accent in the cafe, but Lucas reminded her that everyone has an accent, and that's okay.
Example sentence. I used to feel really self-conscious about my accent, but now I focus more on being confident when I speak English.
Those are some great words to add to your vocabulary. And remember, improving your accent is all about clarity and confidence, just like we discussed earlier.
Exactly. If you use these words and techniques in your own learning, you'll see progress in no time.
And that brings us to the end of today's episode. We've covered a lot about how to improve your English accent, from focusing on clarity over perfection, to using techniques like shadowing, recording yourself, and practicing with pronunciation apps. Remember, improving your accent is a journey, and it's about building confidence in your speech, not eliminating your natural voice.
Exactly. Don't be too hard on yourself if you don't sound exactly like a native speaker. Accents are part of who we are, and the most important thing is being understood. With practice and the right tools, you can make great progress.
So, what's next? If you enjoyed today's episode, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on future episodes. And if you found this discussion helpful, be sure to share it with your friends who are also learning English.
Yes, and please don't forget to leave us a review. We'd love to hear your feedback and what topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes. Also, make sure to check the description for useful resources and links, like pronunciation apps and tools that can help you improve your accent.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you being part of the English Learning Podcast community. We hope you keep practicing and stay motivated on your journey to fluency.
Thanks again for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, keep speaking, keep learning, and most importantly, have fun with English.
Take care, and bye for now.